What is up, Whiskey is Swag Nation? Today we are reviewing Peerless Double Oak Rye. Let's get to it. So Peerless is a really interesting distillery to me. They're one of the newer distilleries in Kentucky, I think. Or maybe they were like a really old school distillery that like reopened in the last 20 years or something. I don't know. All I know is that their products were generally quite young for a while and are, I think, just now starting to get to the levels of maturity where they taste good. But that's just my opinion. But I have heard that echoed online. Now, this one in particular is double oak, meaning I believe that they take this rye whiskey, they start it in one barrel, and then they move it to another new barrel, giving it a lot more of those flavors of fresh oak. Tend to give it more richness, etc. I've always really liked the Peerless Distillery signature. To me, it reads as a little barbecue sauce, kind of definitely a darkness. Also representing the color of their whiskeys, like they just are dark. And I in particular have always liked their ryes. And so I'm excited to try this one again. Obviously, as you can see, it's not a new bottle, but it has been a while since I had it. Other interesting facts here is they say it's strictly sweet mash, not sour mash. I don't really know what that means. Maybe someone in the comments can tell me. This is barrel proof, non-chill filtered, everything you want to see. Not a cheap whiskey though. This guy goes for about 120. So not a cheap one. Ooh. Okay, so the first thing I'm getting here is like what I would describe as oak. Which is not a terribly interesting note. I get oak and a rich sweetness. I don't get, for being a rye, I don't know if this is 100% rye or a barely legal rye, but it's not very rye forward on the nose. You don't get really any of those herbal, menthol, what most people describe as like rye spice. I think if someone just handed this to you, you would for sure think this was a bourbon. So maybe that hints to me it is maybe more of a barely legal rye, but who knows? Maybe it's just the oak having that outsized influence on the liquid. Okay, now I'm starting to open up a little bit in the nose. I'm starting to get flavors I would describe as a little barbecue saucy with a hint of that tanginess that I really like. A little bit of chocolatiness. And a little bit of what I would just describe as like old oak. Like sometimes on older whiskeys, I get this kind of like funky oak note that I really like. I would almost describe it as savory. I don't know if everyone agrees with me on that note, but it's just something I tend to get. So actually a pretty rich, expressive nose at this point. I think it just took a second to open up. All right, to the mouth. Ooh, man. Ooh. Wow. There's a lot going on with that one. You really wouldn't think this was a rye. I will say that. So I think if you like big, oaky, rich bourbons, I think this might be the one for you. And I think maybe just double oak is a style that works a little better with rye than bourbon because bourbon's already so sweet. And so that extra sweetness is almost making this rye present as a bourbon. Oh, man. Oh, man. Second sip was even better. Yeah, this is good. This is so good. I don't know what else to say. This shit is so good. Oh, it's so good. All right, let's take one more sip. I think it's what I've described in nose. It's a little bit of that barbecue sauce, a little bit of chocolate. Definitely just that nice, rich oak, just darkness that I don't really have the words for. I could see someone saying the word plum about this. I'm not sure I'm going to say it, so you won't see me saying it, but someone could say the word plum about this. Oh, man. And man, oh God, this is so good. This just absolutely coats the mouth. Like, this is a nice, thick, velvety, oily texture, the long finish. Oh, this one is heaven. Man, this is said this is my last review too, but this is one of my favorite American whiskeys in my collection for sure. You know what's crazy is I tried the double oak bourbon and it's not as good as this, and really recommend, even if you're not typically a rye fan, even if you're more of a bourbon fan, maybe especially if you're more of a bourbon fan, go for the double oak rye from Peerless. It's just something to do with double oak and bourbon. Almost gives it this like off flavor to me. It's like this kind of weird sweetness that starts to present as like saccharine or unpleasant. Kind of the same thing I tend to get from Maker's Mark. Not my style. Ooh, you know, the nose is starting to open up a bit. I'm getting a hint of like herbal tea, the kind of thing you sometimes get from rye. But it's just a hint. I mean, I swear, if someone passed this to you, you would think this was a nice, sweet bourbon. Oh, that's an incredible pour. You gotta get this one. This one's amazing. A+.